What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be ranking all attacking operators in Rainbow Six Siege. To start off the list, at number 23, I have Fuse. Now, Fuse is one of those operators that beginner players tend to like more than players who've been playing the game for a long time. Because his ability, it seems that against newer players, you can get just actual kills with it. Whereas against smarter players, they can easily hear it while it's being deployed before the actual explosions start coming and get out of the way. So it can be useful for burning ADSs or destroying other types of gadgets with it instead of actual players. But in general, it doesn't have huge impact on the game, and also you can also sometimes accidentally team kill people with it if you aren't careful. The number 22 spot, we have Capitao. And even with the recent buffs, he still is just not the best operator. His guns are kind of lacking, and his ability, although good for area denial, is not more useful than most other operators. Next, at number 21, we have Blitz. And Blitz is one of those operators that can be really frustrating to deal with. But it seems like whenever you actually play it, doesn't work very well. And if you know how to counter him, then he isn't that effective. Next we have Ying, and Ying is one of those operators that's pretty similar to Blitz, where it feels really frustrating when you die to them, because you feel like there was nothing you could have done. But with Jaeger's pick rate being around a 60 or 70%, I think, the ADSs often counter it and make it ineffective. Also, her gun, although it has a high magazine and low recoil and a fast reload time, the damage is pretty lackluster as well as the fire rate. Next we have Glaz. Glaz has always been a decent operator, but with the coming nerf to him, where he doesn't see the yellow outline while moving, it makes him not work as well as a fragger. And although he is good on some maps, such as attacking bedroom on Oregon, like if you watch the big window there, that can be helpful to cut off rotations, but he still is just not the best. Next we have IQ, and IQ is one of those operators that I think is better at higher levels in general, but just doesn't really bring that much utility to the table. And her weapons are pretty decent. The fire rate on them isn't the best, but the damage is pretty good for most of them. And she's a 3-speed. Next we have Finka, and although Finka does have a super high win rate, that has been fluctuating recently. If you've looked at the demographics for operator win delta and pick rate, Finka was really low last season, and she was really high this season. So she's just been moving around. Same with like Kapkan and a lot of other operators. And her ability, it does have some benefits, but personally I don't really like it that much, because the pulsing effect and the blue on the sides of your screens makes it actually harder to hear people and see people. So although your ADS time is faster and you're immune to take less damage or have less effect from like Ela mines, that sort of thing, I really just don't think her ability brings a lot to the table. Along with her guns are okay, but they're not the best in my opinion. Next we have Montaigne. Montaigne is one of those operators that I think can be really good if you're playing with a team, but if you're solo queuing or like don't have a really organized team, he isn't the best. And it's especially frustrating when you're like the last person alive on your team and you're just hiding in a corner. Everyone comes to just beat you up, That can be kind of annoying. And personally, I think he's okay, but I just don't really like playing him, so that's more one of those opinionated ones. Next, we have Blackbeard. Blackbeard, I would say, is a good operator, but he's not very fun to play, and most people just dislike him in general. His gun is really bad. He's super slow when he has his shield out. Although it does make it easier. I'd say it's better at the higher levels when everyone has like insane aim and they're always hitting headshots, so that can give you a big advantage blocking all the headshots. But I think in general he's just not the funnest to play, and I really dislike him. Next we have Lion. Lion is also getting a nerf soon. where he won't see the red outline but only ping people, and it lasts for less time, so it'll be even worse than usual. His ability when he first came out was extremely overpowered, but he's gotten nerfed a bunch of times, so he's really not the best now. His gun is pretty good. The V308, it's one of the best assault rifles. But other than that, he's just kind of average. Next we have Sledge. Sledge is an operator that's great for beginners, but not as good at the higher levels when most things are reinforced. He can push well. He can use vertical play well to push from above, but I think Buck just does that better, so that's why I have him ranked at number 13. Next we have Twitch. Twitch's gun has really high fire rate, lowish damage. It has good DPS, but I think the thing about her is that her gun has a lot of recoil, so it's hard to control for newer players. And her ability, it's good at countering mirrors, but other than that, it just really doesn't do that much. And she's gotten nerfed so many times with a lot of her tases removed, so now she only has 2 drones, each with 5, so 10 total, which really just doesn't bring a ton of utility. And the fact that her drones can't jump makes it extremely annoying when you try to, like, throw it through a window, and it, like, say you have a hole in a window, you try to throw it through the hole, and then it just ends up, like, on the sort of bottom of the window, and you can't get it through. That sort of thing is really annoying. Next is Buck. Like I said, Buck is basically just a better version of Sledge, with the one hindrance of having extremely high recoil on his C8. But if you know how to control it, or if you put a holographic or reflex on it, it's a bit easier. Next we have Zofia. Zofia is very versatile. She has also received a few nerfs with losing 2 of her concussion mines. So she's basically kind of like Ash, where she has the breaching rounds. Or, I guess they're impact grenades, but they're pretty similar to Ash. So I think she brings a little more utility than Ash, but she's not a 3-speed, and her guns aren't quite as good. So I would say she's sort of an average operator, kind of similar to Sledge. Next we have Nomad, and I think when Nomad first came out, she was extremely overpowered, because her air jab, detonated right when it landed, so she was kind of an overpowered entry fragger, but now with the 1.5 second delay, she's less of a fragger and more of a flank watcher, which I think is done better by someone coming up you'll see in the list. Next is Dokkaebi. Dokkaebi is also receiving a slight nerf soon. I'm not really going to talk about it much because I don't think it'll make a huge difference with how she's played or her win rate. But it will make it slightly less annoying to deal with her. Her weapon is decent. It's a semi-auto, but it has really low really low recoil. So you can kind of laser people with it, but it is harder because it's semi-auto, which most people just find harder to use, I would say. And her secondary, the SMG-12 used to be extremely overpowered. That was nerfed a bunch too. The recoil was increased. So I would say she's just not as good as she was before, but still a pretty potent operator. Next we have Thatcher. Thatcher has always been one of those operators that is just a great team player for getting rid of bandit charges, or bandit batteries, other stuff like that. Just trying to clear out the path for breachers or other things. I think he's just a really balanced operator, like decent weapons, 2 speed, 2 armor, that sort of thing. You know, he's a great great operator for beginners. Next we have Jackal. I think Jackal is played a lot in Pro League, but he's still definitely good at most ranks for countering roamers. The C7E is a great weapon. Just a great operator overall. No real weaknesses. Next we have Thermite. Thermite is just he's another operator that's really good for beginners. Just able to breach open a hole wall, that sort of thing, open up more angles for attackers. Definitely a necessity to have a hard breacher on most objectives, and Thermite does it pretty well. Next we have Maverick. I would say Maverick, although he's a hard breacher, you don't really play him like a hard breacher. He's not really meant for opening up things, but more like sneaking around to somewhere where you won't expect it, making one little hole after you've gained intel on where someone is, and then just shooting them right through it. Whereas if you make a hole with him and just peek through it, someone will usually see you before you see them if you don't already know where they are, so it's better to drone it out and maybe ping them, or if your map knowledge is good, then don't ping them and save your drone. But yeah, he can be really annoying to deal with, and his weapons are pretty balanced, 3 speed, just a great operator overall. Next we have Ashe, and I think even with the nerf coming, where she's losing her ACOG, I think she's still going to be a great entry fragger, and every team I mean, it's not a necessity, but entry fraggers do help your team out. Just whoever has the best aim, just let them play an entry fragger, and it'll really give you an advantage and let you push the objective more easily. At the number 2 spot, we have Hibana. Hibana is, I think she's like Thermite, but a bit better. She's not as good for opening big holes, but she can still open sight lines, and really what I like about her the most is her ability to open reinforced hatches, especially when you're attacking basements on most maps. They have lots of hatches to cut off rotations or just to get good angles on people. Her gun is also really good. It has a low mag cap, but high fire rate and decent damage and just good DPS overall. And the recoil, I think is maybe a little worse than Ashe, but it's not that bad. And then at the number 1 spot, you guys probably knew what was coming, but it's Gridlock. In her current state, she is extremely overpowered. Her weapon, although it has a low fire rate, it has that new ACOG, which is amazing. High damage, low recoil. Although she is a 1 speed, but her ability is also, I mean, you can just plant the diffuser and throw them all over the place. It's really frustrating to deal with. And then also, the secondary shotgun is good for doing vertical play. It's good for opening big holes and things. And also, like Nomad, she's a flank watcher, but much more effective. Thanks for watching, guys. That's been it, and yeah.